Good morning and welcome to Daddy's Right Here Live. I'm your host as always, Sabir Aleem. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. Excuse me. And welcome all. It's always funny about electronic devices, man. It's like a bad tooth. When you get to the dentist, that tooth stops hurting. Well, electronic equipment, you can have everything already set up. And somehow or another, one thing always decides it wants to act up. So I had to go in and out and reinstall my cameras because my whole Windows system was updated and it just changed all of my features, and I had to go back in and restart and all that kind of stuff about 3 or 4 times. And me, being a person with anxiety, that just elevated, my emotions for a moment. So I had to put the coffee down, so I got to take a break from the coffee now until I come back down. See, anxiety is real, and it's not just when events happen. When you deal with anxiety, it comes in and out. No notice, it just shows up. So when I'm in the midst of doing things, because I like to be prompt, I like to get things done, I like to be efficient, and when I'm not able to do those things, I experienced some anxiety in it. So here I am coming up on 9 o'clock. I've been doing this for the last 40 minutes, getting prepared, because as you know, I set up 3 different cameras, so kind of went into a whole different mode. So I'm gonna put the coffee down, and that's one of the solutions. If you deal with anxiety, if you are at that time using something that has caffeinated product in, cut it out. If you are doing something that's elevating your anxiety even more, other than what it is that you have to be doing, cut it off. So, you got to learn how to manage those things. So, I'm a little more at ease and back on track now. I got the cameras and everything flowing. So, again, good morning and welcome to Daddy's Right Here Live. So just again, another reminder that this is Mental Health Awareness Month, and I want everybody to do all the research you possibly can and understanding not everybody else's mental health, but your own. What are you doing to keep balance in your life? How much time do you spend engulfed in nothing but work, nothing but high stress activities? What do you do to meditate, to enjoy life, to take time out? Because we need to take time out, away from the hustle and bustle of the day. Do you take walks? You don't necessarily have to run. Do you take a walk? Do you separate yourself from all those other things, from all those other people? This is really important to understand. A lot of people are neglectful of their mental health, taking care of the physical health, and that seems to be where it stops for a lot of people. They're not working out, things of that nature. The other part is people go to their places of worship, right? And that's a great and wonderful thing as well. But when I'm talking about mental health and meditation, this is a total separation from everything. Because sometimes, right, those practices, those involvements, those groups can cause more stress upon you. You really want to look at that. You look at our society overall, we're at divide. We're at divide with one another because of our own practices. You practice this, I don't be involved with it. You practice that, I can't deal with it. That's stressful. You have family members who have varied practices, and you are always at odds with them because of their beliefs. Because of their beliefs, because of their practices, because of their values. And you don't even recognize it in many instances, because what happens is your unconscious takes control. It takes control. So there's a lot of things that you need to begin to learn about yourself. Hence the reason why I decided on today's subject matter, which is about self-awareness. There's 2 articles I'm sitting here going back and forth with as to which ones have the more efficient content, and they both have really good content. And again, it goes back to research. You're going to have articles that support your position on things. You're going to have articles that support your thinking. Don't always focus on those articles. Look at the opposing views as well. You have to look at the opposing views. Reason being, one, you may learn something more than what you currently learned, what you currently know about the subject matter. Two, you have an opportunity to see things from another person's perspective. And three, hopefully that you'll learn something and you'll find a better way of dealing with that situation, whether it's the person's opposing view or whether it's you learning more about yourself so you can move towards change. That's important to understand. And a lot of times we just find things that's more to our liking, hence the reason why, again, we don't know a lot of things. When we look at our political structure, how many of us really know about politics? How many of us really know how to move people in and out of office? How many people really have an understanding of accountability in a political office? These things are important. So the article that I'm going to go with, drum roll, reachout.com, they have an article, How to Become Self-Aware. That's reachout, one word, .com, How to Become Self-Aware. So to the article, developing your self-awareness helps you learn more about yourself and what you're capable of. There are some great ways you can work on your self-awareness, but what you do then is entirely up to you. So you're going to get the information, which I was just talking about. You're going to learn some things about yourself. And you're going to begin to see what you're capable of doing. And the thing about self-awareness is you see strengths and weaknesses. And it goes back to when you read things, when you look into things, look at both sides. Don't just look for something that supports your current thinking. Because you're currently doing things that way don't necessarily make it right, for one. Doesn't necessarily mean that it's productive, for two. And it doesn't necessarily mean you need to be doing it. Because there's some things you do that you don't need to be doing. But you just do it out of habit. Excuse me. You just do it out of habit. You just do it because somebody else said that that's what we do as a practice. And you go on to do it. Back to the article. This can help if you want to know more about yourself. Let me start that over again. This can help if you want to know more about yourself. 2, you want to develop good self-esteem. 3, you don't understand other people's reactions to stuff that you're doing. You get that? This is important to understand. And this all ties into relationships. It all ties into relationships. All of it. And again, it goes back to, you have to see the other person's view. You have to see the so-called opposing view. And I say so-called in this context because now we're looking at relationships. We're looking at relationships. So if you're in a relationship with someone and you see their view as being oppositional, that brings forth confrontation. That brings forth conflict. So let's go back to the first bulleted item. I said 1, 2, and 3. They're bulleted items under the headline of this can help if. So you want to know more about yourself. If you want to know more about yourself. Right? Again, we're talking about developing self-awareness. Do you want to know more about yourself? You really have to ask yourself that. A lot of times there's no time for a self-assessment because we're often too busy assessing everything else around us, everyone else around us. Hence the reason why when we're confronted about a particular behavior, we get defensive because we don't see it. because we don't see it. When it occurs, for one, we may unconsciously experience something when that event happened, or we may consciously experience something. Now, oftentimes what happens, and I'm going to do a show next week on consciousness versus unconsciousness. Without going into it, unconsciously how do I say this? Our consciousness, our conscious behaviors, our conscious actions are driven by an unconscious. Again, if you hear a song, for instance, on the radio, I'll use me for an example. I'm almost 58. When I hear songs from the 70s, it was a very difficult period of my life. From the 70s, it began. The sadness began to seep into me in the 70s. So when I hear Heat Wave, that's one of the albums that I listen to all the time. When I hear the Isley Brothers, when I hear Breakwater, when I hear Brass Construction, it takes me back to a period of my life that was a difficult time. And as soon as I hear the song, I go right back to that period. It's called rubber banding, right? It's called rubber banding. And that's fine in the moment. When we get stuck there, that's where the problem comes in, right? So I'm not stuck there, but unconsciously it resides within the crevices of my mind. So when you take that and you use it with self-awareness, this is saying, do you want to know why you well up when you hear that song? Do you want to know why you feel out of sorts when you hear that song? When you're in a certain place, when you're in a certain situation, when a person does a certain thing, you feel something. But the first thing you do is when you feel it, because you don't know what it is, you think and you give it a name, you give it a rationale, you give it a reason, and usually it's what's in front of you that gets the title as the problem. But it's not that person or thing, that activity that's happening that is the problem. It's happening inside of you. It's happening inside of you. So when the first bulleted item on this list says, this can help if you want to know more about yourself, you have to answer that question. Do you want to know more about yourself? Some people recall a portion of traumatic events, but don't want to revisit them. They don't want to revisit them, and don't understand the relationship between trauma healing, and I would say self-imposed victimization. Because it happened to you, you have to do something about it. You can't continue to blame the event, whatever it was, on why you feel that way, because you're responsible for bringing resolve to your condition. Because you can't go through your life. You can't go through your life. Well, you can if you want to. It's just not a good option. But you can't go through your life continuing to blame this situation, this incident, on your ongoing condition. I'm not telling you that it didn't happen. I'm not telling you to forget about it. I'm telling you, you are responsible for moving on. You're responsible for moving on. That's what you have to do. So, are you willing to go inside? The next bulleted item, if you want to develop good self-esteem. A lot of times people confuse good self-esteem with achievement, with accomplishment in a particular area, such as their chosen craft. So if you're good at what you do as a nurse, as a plumber, as an environmental services person, if you're good at what you do, you're confident in that. That means when you show up at work, you're on it. That means that when you have conversations with others about something relative to your craft, you're on it. You're on it. That, you have to begin to look at, okay, so that's confidence about your craft. Does that equate to good self-esteem? What does good self-esteem look like? Because it says develop good self-esteem. So that means that if there's good self-esteem, there's bad or negative self-esteem. Now we know anything negative, right, poses as a difficulty unless it has to work with a positive to be effective. Like on the car battery. You can plug up to the positive terminal all day long, but you need the negative one too. Because you can't get the party started if it's not on the negative. So they have to coexist. But in the terms of human development, it goes back to strengths and weaknesses. So if your self-esteem is not good, what is that strengths and weaknesses list going to look like? If your self-esteem is good, what are your strengths and weaknesses list going to look like? You following me here? So when you talk about if you want to develop good self-esteem, you're going to have to look at you. Because you can't get it from others. And this is another problem today. Well, not just happening today, but I'm saying that this is a problem in society where people find themselves in certain types of relationships because of self-esteem related issues. Which again is part of that complicatedness, that complexity of the human being, the compounding of events that have taken place throughout one's life. It drives people into certain conditions. And it's very hard to stay connected inside because we spend so much time hiding from the inside stuff and projecting outwardly what it is that we're hiding, and we don't see it. Because we're stuffing it down, we think we're concealing it from others, but others see it, which goes to number 3 point. This can help if you don't understand other people's reactions to the stuff that you're doing. I had to get an understanding as to why I've been married 4 times. Not because I was a bad husband, not because I was abusive, not because of anything that I was seeing. What I concluded through my self-assessment, through my willingness to follow those previous points, and the third, what I discovered was that I'm codependent and also sweating. I'm not even drinking anything hot. I'm sweating. I'm just excited. So I had to learn that about myself, and that's difficult to say. It's like that tongue almost gets like the tongue wants to draw back. Don't say that. Don't you say that? It's a reality. It's been my reality most of my life. Most of my life. I have decided it got to go. It's got to go. Codependency, no more. It's got to go. And that's what I'm working on. That's part of my development of self-awareness. Codependent, man. I've taken care of and looked out for people, taken stuff on the chin all my life. All of my life. I've entered into relationships to benefit somebody else, to help somebody else. Not saying that they were incapable. They were taking care of themselves the way they want to take care of themselves. You can never take anybody from the condition that they choose to be in. Remember that. And it's saying absolutely nothing negative about my former wives. It speaks to me, not them. And it doesn't speak to the wrongness of or by me. It speaks to the value that I have. Nobody looks at the fact that I got married. Out of 5 relationships, I married 4. The value of marriage, right? I enjoy being a husband. I like the responsibility of being a husband. I enjoy that. Other than the fact that it's half of my religious obligation as a Muslim. But I started entering into marriage at 24, before Islam, because I saw some rightness in it. So that was already within me, hence my codependent behavior. Hence my codependent behavior. So yeah, I get tongue-tied when I say I'm codependent, and I have to keep reminding myself, that I'm codependent so I can continue to work on that, because that's not a good thing. Okay, back to the article. Why does self-awareness matter? Self-awareness is really just about being aware and confident of who you are. And there's a difference between confident of who you are and confident with what you do. Follow me? It can relate to knowing your own values, beliefs, personal preferences, and tendencies. You know how famous people always say, stay true to yourself. This is really important advice. But it's not easy to stay true to yourself if you don't know who you are. By becoming self-aware and understanding your strengths and limitations, you open up opportunities that just aren't available otherwise. You're also able to have more honest and genuine relationships, because the people that you're attracted to will be attracted to you for who you really are. Yeah. I want you to understand, before we go into the list of 3 ways to become aware, self-aware, I want you to understand something, right? I often hear people talk about how things changed after they got married. I often hear people talk about things changed after we slept together. I often hear all of those things. And I'm going to bring it back to self. Why did you get involved with this person? Why did you have sex with this person? If sex was what you wanted, why do you equate other things? Why do you factor other things into the activity? Why do you do that? Why did you go through with having sex? Why did you go through with having a date? It was just something to do? Well, you could have took your own damn self to dinner. Why didn't you just do that? Why did you involve somebody else? Just because they asked? Just because she had a nice smile, a nice behind? You were looking at the cleavage? You was looking at his chest? What? Why did you go in the beginning? And this is the question that I go back to all the time, right? Because I've been there so many times. Like I said, 4 marriages. And I go back and I ask the very same question of each of them. Of each of them. And then after the marriage ends, like I've had an opportunity, over the past year to look back on all of my marriages. Because one of the first things you begin to do is, like when you're in one, that one ends, you're out of it, you're in a new one, that new one begins to go south, you begin to look at options. I don't know about you. You begin to look at options. And the option to stay, the option to, to move on. I'm sweating again, y'all, sorry. I don't know. I got to get a sweat-free shirt. I think, I just realized I keep forgetting I have these two lights on me too. But I began to look back on what was I attracted to, and I already established the fact that I'm codependent. So I saw things about them, right, that made me feel like I needed to save them. They were attractive too, don't get me wrong, but there was a need for me to help, to step in and change their condition, right? Not saying they were bad people, again. There was something within me attracted to being the white knight. I want to be the savior, come along, sweep you off your feet, show you this beautiful house on the hill, and we live happily ever after. You can have that life if that's what you want. But they weren't pursuing that. So then I began to look at, because now we're back to, you begin to look backwards. What we tend to do is go back to what's most convenient, what's most familiar for us. So if this relationship ends, you got to start the dating process all over again. You got to get familiar with somebody again. I don't want to do all that. It's just so much work doing all of that. So the first thing you do is what? You look at an ex. Oh, well, maybe we can, because, this is the self-talk. You start telling yourself this insanity. Maybe we can get back together again, yada, 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 yada. And sometimes people do. Sometimes people do get back together again, and sometimes they're together for a period of time, and sometimes people stay together forever. But the relationship has definitely changed. Believe that. Your relationship will never, ever be the way it was. It will never be that way. And people will tell us, oh, well, it was even better afterwards. Okay. That's not been my experience. That's not been my professional, right, research-driven understanding either. Because it never goes away. Whatever took place between the two of you will always remain in the confines of that person's mind. It'll always be there. And when their internal stuff goes south, trust me, it comes out. All right? But it goes back to, I started looking at their conditioning and going backwards into something that you were already dissatisfied with. Doesn't make sense. But because it's familiar, because it's comfortable, we tend to go back. We gravitate quickly that way because it's easier. Especially if you've been intimate with that person sexually. Because, okay, you need to get your groove on, but I don't want to pick up anybody. Then you got to deal with that. So like, okay, what's up, boo? Oh, I'm good. How you doing? Yeah. What you doing? I'm just chilling. What's up? Well, and everybody do said it. I can make you pick your phone up. So, anywho, so you go back. But when it talks about here how if you don't know, by becoming self-aware and understanding your strengths and limitations, you open up opportunities that just aren't available otherwise. When you look at the opportunity, in that moment, when you decided you want to pick that phone up, to not pick the phone up, that's an opportunity for growth. It's an opportunity for growth. It's an opportunity for learning. It's an opportunity for self-awareness. That's what I've been doing for the past year, looking back on those kind of things. Because I guarantee you, I can have a conversation within 5 minutes, I'll realize why I'm out. In 5 minutes, I'll realize it. It'll all kick back in. Remember, I told you, go back to the previous conversation I was having regarding hearing music from the 70s. It's like riding a bike, folks. As soon as you reconnect, within no time, the old feelings start kicking right back up. The old thoughts start kicking right back up. I don't care how much of a twinge you have in your groin, right? I really don't. And for males, it's much easier to disregard all those things. But we both do it, men and women. But males and females, because it's not always men and women, because that's a different category than a male and a female, but that's another discussion. I ain't going to try to go that far on you. But I'm saying that, that males are more apt to be disregarding of those thoughts and those feelings because, like, I just need to release myself. Should be alright when I get there. It'll be good for her. I got the magic stick. But we both do it. And we both get there. And when we get there again, it's satisfying. And we already knew that it would be. And then you just started that cycle all over again. You can stop the cycle. When you find yourself in that circumstance where you can begin to understand your strengths and limitations. That, again, limitations. When you get all hot and bothered and horny, what decisions do you make? Because self-awareness also leads into self-control. Also leads into self-control. Well, the sex was always great, but the sex wasn't the problem. In most relationships I had, sex was not an issue. And in many other relationships, sex is not the issue of the relationship. Hence the reason why it's so easy to go back to it. It's so easy to go back to it. But you resurface things and you enter into that realm all over again. And then you start talking about possibilities in a situation that clearly showed that the probabilities are much higher than the possibilities. It ain't gonna last. So let's go to this list, right, of 3 ways to become self-aware. And again, for those of you who may have just tuned in, because I can't see who's tuning and who's not tuning, but again, good morning to all of you, and thank you for tuning in. So I'm at the site reachout.com. And the article is How to Become Self-Aware. So if you're in front of your computer and you can go there, go there. So let's go to the list. 3 ways to become self-aware. Number 1, assess your self-talk. The first step in self-awareness is to listen to yourself, as we often do. What's going on in your mind? Is it a series of negative thoughts that make you feel pretty crappy? Or are you always looking on the bright side? In practice, take a couple of minutes each day to sit in silence and listen to the tone of your inner voice. One way of getting your inner voice going is to stand in front of a mirror and hear what you're saying to yourself about how you look. It might even help to write down your thoughts so that you can get a better idea of how positive or negative they are. Now, we know that Michael Jackson wrote the song, Man in the Mirror. And you probably often have heard it said by others. Take a look at yourself. Oh, did I just go back to the lyrics of Michael Jackson's song? I'm sorry. So, go stand in the mirror. And I just shared this yesterday on Facebook Live. I did a little on my story piece. I was just sitting on the porch chilling, smoking a cigar, enjoying the rain. I love the rain. I love hearing it hit the petals on the leaves and all those things. And I was talking about how midlife crisis, when it shows up, what it looks like, what it is, and I was talking about how I've been looking in the mirror and looking at myself. I mean, just like it was talking about here, literally looking at myself and seeing the aging shine through. Yeah. I'm beginning to see the bone, not the bone structure, but the changing with the flesh. You know, the flesh up under here, just my eyes and, you know, just my being. Because once you stop looking at your physical self and you look in your own eyes and you look at your being, that's when this here piece connected for me. Because I'm looking at what am I telling myself about myself. Yeah. I'm looking into my own eyes, because, you know, we often hear that the eyes are the windows to the soul, and they are. They are. And that's the look I keep looking for, you know, in my selection of partners. You know, I look for that look of, yeah, you've been wounded. Yeah, he hurt you. I got you. Don't worry about it. And I'm telling you, I'm serious. This is real rap, folks. This is my thinking. This is codependent thinking. Yeah, that's codependent thinking. So I began to see myself a lot differently over the past, I don't know, it's like over the past few months. I've been looking at myself and seeing myself differently. I don't know if I'm embracing age, at this point in life. I don't know if it's the transition from middle adulthood into older adulthood, because you have young adulthood, you have middle adulthood, and at 58, this is past the middle. Well, young adulthood, according to Freud, ends at 39. So this has to be the senior, the older aspect of adulthood. So I'm looking at myself through that lens now, and I'm wondering where I am, as a human being. What stage I'm at in my life, and I'm beginning to see the transition. Not till death. Well, listen, the process of death, for those of y'all who don't know, begins at conception. So we begin dying once we're born. But just in making that transition in life, I'm looking at, who's in my life, what's in my life, what I'm doing in my life, all of those things. But most importantly, I'm looking at me. I'm looking at me. It talks about here, it might even help to write down your thoughts. A lot of people use that tool effectively. A lot of people feel the need to write things down. A lot of people journal and all those kind of things. But it's suggesting here that you write it down, because what often happens is if you look and you think and you see what it is that you're telling yourself, right, it can be overshadowed sometimes, because we overcompensate in areas of our life that we're not too comfortable with. So we overcompensate by doing something else. We overcompensate by putting on makeup or getting the beard darkening black stuff where it looks like people took charcoal and all that kind of stuff. When we get fake this and fake that, and I don't mean any disrespect by it if your self-esteem and your self-awareness is intact. But if you're doing those things as a means to mask, to overcompensate in a deficient area, then that is a problem. That is a problem. So you want to get a better idea of how positive or how negative you are. Because you can look, beautiful. You can be the most handsomest man on the planet. But what do you feel inside? And how much of that is negative and how much of that is positive? Because we all know that if you go to the barbershop, if I go to the barbershop, enough times, right, eventually I'm going to get a haircut. In my case, I may just wind up getting shaved just because I'm there all the time. Just because I'm there all the time. So if you're around negative people long enough, they feed the negative within you. They nurture it. Yes, there's nurturing in negativity. They will actually nurture the negativity within you. Yes, they will. They'll embrace your negativity. Help you embrace your negativity. So you got to see those kind of things. Why are you around these kind of people? What do these people benefit from you? If they're negative, where's the benefit? Number 2 on this list. Use your senses. Your senses, sight and sound in particular, can provide you with huge insights into your own and other people's feelings and situations in general. But these senses are often viewed through the filter of our self-talk. For example, a frown doesn't always mean that someone's angry. and they groan doesn't necessarily mean that the person you're talking with is bored, despite what your inner voice might be saying. Let me stop on that part before we talk about the practice. So what we want to look at here, the first thing is your senses, sight and sound in particular, can provide you with huge insights into your own and other people's feelings and situations in general. Right? Sight and sound can provide you with huge insights. So when you look at sight, you're looking at a person. You're looking at a person. And you're looking for those things that you have identified as cues. You've identified them as being cues of that person's reactions to situations. And it just talked about a frown doesn't always mean that a person is angry. But you know when your partner is feeling something, or is about to say something, or is about to do something based on what you see. You see that. Doesn't mean they see it. You see that. They may not have a clue about this behavior that precedes an action. They may not even see it. So when you look at your relationship and you are aware of these things, you are aware of it. The other person is not, but you want to try to make them aware. Well, yeah, when you getting ready to get mad, your right eyebrow just arches up. I'm telling you, that's what it does. You know it does. No, you know it does. I just do it automatically. I just do it naturally, even though you may be accurate in saying it. But you make the assumption. My eyebrow may do that when I'm thinking about something. My eyebrow may do that. That may be my way of thinking about what's being. That may be my way of listening. That may be my way of guarding myself, protecting myself. It could be a number of reasons, but it doesn't have to necessarily be the reason you say, because you see it. That's why we have to have conversations, so we can have an understanding of what happened. So that way you can begin to look at, okay, so that arched eyebrow is not, I'm angry. That arched eyebrow is, he or she is processing what I'm about to say. So they're putting themselves in a mode of listening. Not hearing, listening. Because we hear a lot, but we have to listen. And that may be the reason for the arching of the eyebrow. So you've learned something about that. So it says sight and sound. When you look at sound, when I'm talking to people on the phone, like especially, you know, people who I'm close to, familiar with, and I hear that, what's the first thing you do? Think about it. What is it related to? When I hear it, it's a matter of, my thinking says, she don't want to hear this. Here we go again, is what she's saying to herself. And automatically, if I lock onto it, if I lock onto the side, the rest of it goes south. The rest of it goes south. Or when you hear somebody say, what? What did you just hear? I mean, what is what you just heard, but when you hear what, and you hear that elevated tone, what usually comes after what? Like, uh-oh, about to go down. Or you think something negative. You don't think it's positive, right? Somebody could have just looked at a letter and saw that they won $1 million. What? So the what doesn't sound, isn't that, what? It's not all, it could be what? First thing we think is negative. Think about it. When somebody says, oh my God. What? See how the two go together? What? Something negative. Things that simple. So that's when you start looking at sight and sound. Because this is how you start developing your own awareness. Your own awareness. What do you feel? What do you think? What happens inside of you when you hear what? Oh my God! When you see the arching eyebrow, what happens inside of you? It also talks about huge insights into your own and other people's feelings and situations in general. If you constantly find yourself in conflict, at odds, look at those things. Recall the sights and sounds that happened in that situation. Because again, this is about your self-awareness. It's not about the other person. It's about what you are doing inside of you. Because you're doing something all the time inside of you. Right now, I'm doing something inside of me. Because it goes further into an article when it talks about the previous paragraph. It talked about those internal filters. Everything that I'm talking to you about today is coming through my internal filters. Meaning that my worldview, my lens of living. So when I'm talking, yes, I'm an intellectual, if you haven't gathered that yet, but I'm also talking to you through my living. I'm a clinician. I'm a codependent person. No more. But the point is, that's who I am. I'm a caretaker. I'm a Libra. Balance. All these things are significant. All these things are significant. Science is significant. If you believe that religion and science are separated, you don't understand your religion. They're all interrelated. So you have to understand that what you learn from others, you're learning through their filters. Therefore, it's safe to say that it's their interpretation that draws you to want to seek out an understanding. Because some people have the ability to break things down so you can better understand what it is that they're trying to get you to look at. It's subject discovery. I should be able to lead you to subject discovery. That means that I should be able to take you in a direction where you are somewhat walking down this path with me. That it's not just that you're hearing me, you're listening to me. Because I'm prompting you to look at this. I'm prompting you to utilize something that you are familiar with in an effort to connect to the subject matter. That's subject discovery. So I use myself as an example. I'm sharing my human experience. I'm giving you examples of myself. I'm giving you examples of the article information and asking you to look at you through that lens. That's subject discovery. A groan doesn't necessarily mean that the person you're talking to with is bored. It just doesn't. Sometimes, we do things like, you ever see somebody who just kind of laughs in certain situations where you don't find it to be appropriate? That's their negative energy, and they'll kind of tell a joke or something because that's how they handle their negative energy. But we'll beat them up and tell them how inappropriate it was. Well, it's the same thing here with a groan. It's an uncomfortable subject matter for me. And maybe that's why I did it, not because I'm bored. It may be an outward expression that may very well be socially inappropriate in terms of social etiquette, but that it's something that I have to deal with, and I don't want to confront that. So a lot of times people are confronted with situations that they're avoiding, and they don't want to, and they turn negative because they just don't want to deal with it. And you'll find that in your relationships with your partner. That there are things that happen and when you see those kind of reactions, your filters say something negative about it. Their filters may just be in defense mode. So, in practice, the next time you feel that someone is judging you or has made you feel bad about yourself, take a step back and write down why you think this is. Why you think this is. Ask yourself, could I have interpreted what was said or done differently? Scott finished talking about that, right? You find that your interpretation was clouded by your own negative thoughts. This guy finished talking about that. And again, remind y'all, I don't read these articles prior to the show. And I don't read them for a variety of reasons. Right? One of the reasons I don't read it is because I want to experience it with you. I want to experience the learning with you. And the other thing that's really important is credibility. Because when you're helping people, people have to see you as being credible. Because anybody can read from an article and pontificate and enunciate. Anybody can do that. Credibility is a whole different aspect of being a service provider. And that's an aspect that is often tainted. And I'm going to stop there. I'm not going to go further into it. But so that's my other reasoning. So I don't read these articles. Believe what I tell you, I don't read them. But because I do so much research, because I'm always reading, because I'm always learning about self, because I'm always looking at, things, because it's only through understanding and application that this information works. If I can kind of use that analogy. For those of y'all who know what I just did. So that's the whole thing here. So I'm learning this too. So it talks about this here. Now, I don't know if you're going to be able to stop. Like, hold up, stop your argument, let me get a pen. Honey, can you give your father a pen? I need to write this down. Your mother and I are getting ready to argue, but I want to make sure I capture this. I'm not saying it's going down like that, right? But it says that the next time you feel that someone is judging you or has made you feel bad about yourself, take a step back. Who said that you can't stop? Because it just said that someone is judging you. That means that they may be saying something at the moment. They may have said something at the moment. You're already in your feelings. So there's a clinical technique called the stop technique. It is. Look it up. Yeah. When you feel that when you feel it coming, stop. Even if you're just standing in front of that person. In here, stop. Focus on the stop. You may not hear anything else that's said after that. You may not be listening to anything else that person has to say. Because once you're in that mode of feeling offended, feeling judged, feeling bad about yourself, you're not going to hear anything else anyway. But this tool, this stop technique, stop, regroup, stop. You know where you are, stop. Stop, come back. Come back. Just come back for a minute here. Just stop first. Don't think about nothing else. Stop. Give yourself something positive to focus on right now. You may have to come back to it later. Okay. And then when they get done, well, Sabir, do you have anything to say? Not at this time. Can I get back to you on that? Sure, thanks. Go to the bathroom, write it down. Whatever you have to do, take a minute and then come back to it. If you need a moment, if you're not in a position where you can leave from where you are, just take a minute. Can you come back to me for a minute, please? Please. Okay, let John go next, and I'll go after him. Because you gotta come back right. But then and using the practice that they asked here, you can still write it down. What was going on in that moment? You know, what was going on in that moment? See, what happens is, if you're in the moment and you're going through, you're not stopping, and you're going through, all these things are playing out. They're all playing out. They're playing out on both sides. So it's a difficult thing when you know you're right about what it is that you're confronting in that particular thing. You know you're right. You know you're 100% right. You know you did absolutely nothing wrong. You know that. But the other person is flipping the script because they don't want to take accountability. They don't want to be responsible for their own actions. And what you begin to do is fight with them about taking responsibility. What you begin to do is defend yourself. So you're defending yourself, right? You're offending yourself, and you're offending the other person by your actions, that's your body actions, and or what's coming out of your mouth. All because you don't have an awareness about this thing that's happening right now inside of you. So you have to begin to jump inside immediately. And you got to write it down. Write it down. What happened? Why did this just happen? Because, you know, this is one of the things that I do often. Like, okay, so, well, wait a minute, but I didn't say anything to you. No, I didn't say anything, and no, I didn't. I didn't even change my voice tone. Yes, you did, but what's happening is they're in their feelings about something, and then they want to blame. So you have to see, do you have that kind of behavior? What do you do when you feel judged? What do you do? Why are you thinking that you're being judged? If you're in a relationship with me, if we're supposed to love each other, if we're married to each other, why do you think I would want to say something hurtful to you? What's the benefit in that? Think about it for a minute. What is the benefit in me telling you about this negative behavior that you just projected upon me? What's the benefit that I have? What benefit I'm looking for is for it to stop. So you ask yourself that, why would my husband be saying this to me? Why would he say this to me? I'm reacting like he intentionally sought out to hurt me. Why do I think that? Why do I think that about my husband? Why do I think that about my wife? What reason? And this is what we actually, a lot of times, are saying this inside of our head, like, what the hell?